them to go on a little longer. You'll see it cuts there. Oh, my lights went out, cool. Let me just change that battery real quick. Hi everyone, Dan here, and I'm back again with more editing series goodness for you. Today we're talking ripple editing techniques. That's ripple edit, ripple delete, and rolling edit, all of which allow you to do some pretty nifty stuff and will help speed up your pipeline, especially ripple delete. That thing is just, once I found out that existed, oh my goodness. So if you're new and you don't know, this is a series designed for more beginners or people wanting to expand their skill set in Premiere with some slightly more advanced hotkey stuff. It's all based around hotkeys and speeding up your pipeline and workflow, and yeah, if you learn something, then awesome. And a quick disclaimer before we start, I do use some custom bindings on my keyboard. Most of my hotkeys are bound from / to / on the bottom of my keyboard. If those bindings suit you, then go ahead and use them. If not, bind it to something else. If you like the default bind, assuming there is one, use that. I'm not here to tell you how you should work your keyboard. That's entirely up to you. These are just the bindings that I use and the ones I find most efficient for the way that I edit. So without further ado, let's jump straight into ripple editing. So right here I have the most recent episode of Phasecasts, which you'll already seen by now, if you're watching it. I thought it would be a good example of how ripple editing can be used to speed things up a bit. I've already gone through and kind of trimmed up the sections, so I kind of know what sort of content we're talking about, and trimmed out some of the fluff. The episode's already running at about 40 minutes long, which is quite long. I prefer to try and get it to near half an hour, so we're going to have to cut some stuff out. Now to do this, we'll be using my current favourite tool, ripple delete. Now ripple delete basically does what delete and close gap does, but in one button press rather than two. So say I want to delete this section here. I think Neil's talking about Fortitude. What we would do if we were talking about last episode, we click it, delete it, close gap, and that'd be done. That takes too long. If you're doing, say, a series of videos for a client, or you have to do like a batch edit of several videos, you haven't really got time to go click, 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 click every time you want to make an edit. You especially don't have time to go delete because that just makes me sad. Alright. So instead what we do is we click it as we usually do. That's how we select it. But instead of hitting delete and then close gap, we hit one button, and that is ripple delete. Now for me, mine is bound to / on my keyboard. Might be different for you, but like we said, do what you want. Now keep your eyes peeled because this happens very quickly, and blink and you'll miss it. We've selected our clip, we want to delete, we hit ripple delete, boom, job done. So in case you didn't catch that, basically all it does is deletes the footage that we've selected and moves the rest of the footage up to close that gap. So it literally does close the gap and delete it at the same time. So you can see how that would make editing, a big long thing like this a lot easier. You would just be like, I want to get rid of this bit, I want to get rid of this bit, I want to get rid of this bit, and it would just line everything up for you. I don't want to do that, so I'll go undo all that. But that's the main use of ripple delete, is you can just speed up chunking out bits of footage or whatever it is you don't want. Now, a really cool thing I didn't realize you could do until a little while ago is say, let's just pull these apart here. Let's just pull this bit of footage here apart. Say you have a gap like this on your timeline. Instead of, either using close gap, which may or may not work, or dragging the footage, which we should never do because it's miserable, you can select that gap and hit ripple delete key, and it will close that gap for you, and only that gap. Because the problem with using stuff like close gap is that it can move the entire timeline up, and you sometimes don't want that. Whereas with ripple delete, you can kind of pick and choose which sections you want to close. That's been really useful to me hundreds of times. It's sped up my workflow I don't know how many times, but it's great. You should use it. Now onto the stuff that I don't really use so much but are still very useful. probably the second most useful thing I would use is Ripple Edit. Now Ripple Edit is very similar to Ripple Delete in the fact that it does kind of the same thing, but it's less for, it doesn't close gaps, but it can allow you to sort of shift things, if that makes sense. So I'll demonstrate. So say let's just zoom in on this bit here, it's going to play it out that way. Say I wanted this section here where we're, laughing and having a good time, to either go on a bit longer, or, there's a bit at the end of it that I've decided, oh, I want that in. And instead of trying to like dig around and find it and sort of move things around to put it in, I can just slide everything up and put it in. And we do that with Ripple Edit. Now this is bound to B. I'm pretty sure it's a default bind. I'm pretty sure this and Rolling Edit are both default binds. Don't quote me on that, but I'm pretty sure. So what we can do is take our Ripple Edit tool, and where we have this cut that we want to extend out, we can grab the end of the footage we want to move. So if you want to move, say, this bit up the timeline, if that makes sense, so you want to extend this bit of footage, you grab the end of it with the arrow facing that way, which is a bit counterintuitive, I know. If you want to move the other side of the footage, this section, and expand that out this way, down the timeline, you have to select it this way around. So anyways, you grab the end of your footage and drag however much you want more, 5 seconds, 6 seconds, whatever. And then it will extend out that bit of footage without, shuffling all this around. And you can see when I sort of undo and redo that, it has actually pushed everything up a little bit from where we made our cut. So it extends out that clip, by however long you dragged it for. But say I want to reduce the amount of footage in this section, I can just drag it the other way with the right tool selected. That always helps. You can see now it squishes everything in. Mainly useful for if you want to, you can effectively do what you can do with Ripple Delete with it. In fact, it's probably a better replacement for Ripple Delete when you've got a lot of stuff layered on top of each other. But it allows you to effectively shift the ends of a clip, in or out of where you want them to be. So say you've edited something together and you have, at the start of one clip, someone sort of taking a breath that you didn't quite catch. Instead of going in and having to cut that and Ripple Delete and have everything shift, you can just go in with Ripple Edit and just tweak it. Now Rolling Edit is where things get interesting. This is less of a sort of time saver, although it can, help to sort of do something fancy in a very little time. But it is much more of a stylizing tool in that you can sort of, create this kind of effect that you probably have seen before but not realised you've seen. So this is bound, default binding I'm pretty sure, to N. This allows you to do some pretty unique stuff. So the main use of this tool is just to shift. It's kind of like Ripple Edit, is that you can just kind of drag and shift where a clip ends. Like this, and it'll just grab each side of it and just shift it around. So say I want to extend that clip out, I would grab that. The difference being that it doesn't affect the rest of the timeline. So if you wanted to, extend things out a little bit or compress them in a little bit, you would use this, and it wouldn't affect the rest of the timeline. You'd be left with the same exact duration of, whatever you're editing, but you'd just be changing the points at which it cuts, basically. But here is where things get kind of cool. You can hold Alt whilst using this hotkey or this tool selected, and you can drag either the audio or video channels independently. Now you might think, why the hell would I want to move my footage in the way that basically desyncs the audio, that you're seeing, stuff that you're not hearing, or you're hearing what you're not seeing, whatever. This is used for a technique called L or J cuts. Now L and J cuts are called so because that's the sort of shape they take. So and these are named L and J cuts because of basically the shape they make in the timeline. So if you drag the footage, say this way, you get an L for an L cut. And if you drag the footage this way, you get kind of a very square J that would go this way. So the way you would, sort of use this is if you have, say you have audio of somebody laughing, but you want to cut to them kind of like either preparing for the next shot, or you want to have the footage of them laughing but have, the audio of them actually talking about something sensible. That is where you would use an L or J cut, because you could shift, say, you could have the footage of them laughing, but cut the actual sort of laugh, you know, either fade it out or cut it off, and then have, or you know, cut it out entirely, and then have them talking over it, and then once you've had enough of them laughing on screen, you would cut to the actual footage you've got the audio from of them talking. But say here, I fancy having us, you know, laughing, and I could then have Sam's audio of him talking about the rest of the Bad Batch, continuing through us, you know, chuckling and doing whatever, and then he'd see here, it cuts to what Sam was actually talking about, the actual footage. Doesn't work so well in this sort of context, but it can be useful in others. It's quite a niche tool, you wouldn't use it all the time. But any of those videos you've seen where you've got, you know, someone's talking over them doing something else, and then cutting to them sitting at a desk and talking, say, that would be using a J-cut or an L-cut, whichever. Alright, so that'll about do it for ripple editing. I hope it made sense, because it's one of those things that when you know how to do it, it's, you know, it's kind of second nature, but explaining it can be kind of, you know, explaining how everything moves and interacts when you're using that sort of thing and the program's automatically doing stuff. You kind of need to just try out and see how it feels. But other than that, that's about it. So if you did enjoy this video, do remember to like, subscribe, and all that good stuff. You know the drill by now, and I'll catch you in the next one, whenever that'll be. Bye.